All right, so let's take a look at how an ARM, an adjustable rate mortgage, actually works if we let that adjustable rate float after a little while. So we're going to have some assumptions. So, good credit, we've made our down payment. The key part of this is that our house actually costs, the mortgage itself costs $240,000 after that down payment. And, the bank doesn't know this, but we're going to move after 5 years. The only other piece we should keep in mind is that the mortgage that we have is, let's say, still a 30-year. It's just that we get in this case, 3 years fixed at 3.15%. And then after those 3 years, the rate's going to keep going up. So I gave us just an example of like what some of those subsequent rates might be. So this would be the rate of the 3.825% would be the rate that we have in year 4. The 3.990 would be what we have in year 5. And then even though we're moving, if we were to stick around in year 6, we'd have a rate of 4.425%. So this is where adjustable rate mortgages can get really sort of tricky because you're at the whim of where the market is. So these rates could be very high. Certainly in general, they will be higher than where you started most of the time. But the benefit of an adjustable rate mortgage is you start at a fairly low percent. So let's go to our TVM Solver. So Apps, Finance, TVM Solver. It's a 30-year mortgage, so we could say 30 times 12 or 360, which is already in there. Our intro rate is 3.150. Our present value, so this is the entire value of the loan, that's $240,000. And then our future value is 0. So we're trying to pay this down to 0. So if we hit alpha and solve on the payment, then we get a monthly payment for those first 3 years of $1,031, and if we're rounding, 37 cents. Now, of course, there's a little bit of danger in rounding for the monthly payments, but in general, that won't throw things off too bad in these problems. So if we try to figure out, okay, how much interest did we pay in those first 3 years? Here's where we would go back. So go out to the main screen, go to Apps and Finance, but don't go into the TVM Solver. So if we scroll down, we've used the interest formula before, so let's use that again. So the sum of the interest to figure out how much interest was paid from payment 1 through, while we were, we had this rate for 3 years, so we could say 3 times 12, or you could just say 36, right? So we've made 36 payments at this APR. So it's going to provide this as a negative number, but that's just because it's money we have paid out. So we have paid $21,996, and if we round that, we get 0.05. So we've paid quite a bit in interest. Remember that this monthly payment, every month, a portion of that goes to interest. A portion of that goes to equity, which means actually paying down the loan. So to find how much equity we've built, we go to a similar place, Apps, Finance. And if we scroll down, we're going to find not the sum of the interest, INT, but the sum of the principal, PRN. And we would do a similar thing. So from payment 1 to payment 36, or again, you could say 3 times 12, this will give us how much equity was built. So again, it's negative since this is money that we were paying out, but it's paying toward our equity. So 15,133.21 cents. Notice we've paid way more in interest than we have toward equity in those first 3 years. This is not uncommon. Your earliest payments will have the most money going toward interest, and the farther into the loan you get, the more it will go toward equity instead. This works in the bank's favor because they know you're probably going to move before those 30 years are up. So in the early going, they're going to get as much interest from you as possible. It's just kind of the standard way that these loans work. So it's a good idea to pay down early if you can. But for this, we're just assuming you're paying just that minimum monthly payment. Okay, the remaining balance, we go back to, again, pretty much the same place, apps, finance, and then we're going to see the balance function. So again, just got to scroll down a little bit. So we see the balance function. Okay, this one we don't have to give a starting payment. We just say, what's the balance after 36 payments? And so if we find that balance, this is saying, what do we still owe? So the original mortgage was for $240,000. We still owe $224,866, and if we round up, this would be 79 cents. Notice that the equity and the remaining balance, those two things together, in this case, if we added them, we would get the 240,000, and we can show that. So if we take our balance that we have there and just say plus the 15,133 and 21 cents, we would get, right, essentially what looks like almost 240,000, but if we round this, the 8 here makes all of this round up to 240,000. So that's because, right, any equity we've built, that's how much we've actually paid toward the loan. Okay, so this remaining balance is sort of important because we'd say, okay, when the rate changes, so remember, we only get that fixed rate, the 3.150, we only get that for 3 years. In year 4, we're going to switch APR. So APR becomes 3.825. Now, a lot of things change when we go into the solver. So let's just be careful about that. So let's go back to the TVM solver. So N says, how many payments do we have left? Well, we have already done 3 years of payments, which means we have, on a 30-year mortgage, we have 27 years left of monthly payments. So 27 times 12 is our N. It's really important that we change that. The interest rate, of course, that changes. That's the whole point of an adjustable rate mortgage, is that it's floating. Our present value also changes. We no longer owe $240,000 on this loan. What we owe now is the remaining balance. That's the bolded amount, $224,866 and 79 cents. We would still like to pay that loan down to 0. Keep in mind, all of this is theoretical because we're saying, well, we know that the interest rate will change in the future. So that's fine, but we kind of proceed as though it's staying this amount. So for this year, let's figure out our payment. So alpha and then enter, that'll solve it for us. So our monthly payment for this particular year is $1,114. And again, if we round, we get 0.04. So $1,114.04. And we can do interest, equity, and remaining balance all the same way that we just did. We have to be very careful with one other piece though, right? In the cases that we just did, it was a 3-year process. So we looked at 36 payments, or 3 times 12. This time around, we only get to keep this interest rate for 1 year. So we're going to look 12 payments in. And also because everything else reset, we don't have to start from 36 payments and say like, oh, this is the 37th payment. It is. However, because we reset everything in the solver, when we go to do interest, we say, okay, at this payment and with this new balance, we want to know how much interest did we pay from our first payment to our 12th. So just with everything reset, how much interest did we pay? So we paid $8,516 and 68 cents. We can do the same thing with our equity. So that's just the sum of the principal. And we're going to go from, whoops, that's the balance. That's okay. We can do the balance here. So the balance would just be 12 payments in, right? So I'll do this a little bit out of order, but I'll go back and grab the equity in just a second. So $220,014.94. Again, if I round, I'm going to bold that because we're going to need that number in just a minute. And then let's go find our equity built. And again, it's the equity built not in total, but rather this year. So in year 4 of our mortgage. So that's the sum of the principal, right? So from 1 to 12, so payment 1 to payment 12 for that year. And so we've built $4,851.85. Okay, you could also say, well, our remaining balance was $224,000 and some extra. If we built this much equity, that's how much we paid down toward that balance. So that should get us the remaining balance. So we could do the previous remaining balance minus this equity to get the new one. All right, and then for year 5, right, the last year we're actually going to be in this house, let's go back through and change what we need to in the solver. So we're 4 years in. That means we have 26 years left. So n is going to be 26 times 12. The interest rate in year 5 we were given was 3.990. The present value, this is how much we still owe on the loan. Well, now that remaining balance is $220,014.94. So that's going to be our PV, our present value. Future value, still 0. We could do alpha enter, and they go, great. My monthly payments now are $1,134, and if we round, 16 cents. We can go back through, again, basically going through this same process. The biggest thing is adjusting all of those pieces in the TVM solver. After that, it's really just a matter of saying, okay, I want the interest. Well, we're only at this interest rate for 1 year. So from 1 to 12. So this year we paid $8,689.26 in interest. We can again do our equity built, just do the sum. Again, that sigma just means sum. So sum of the principal, payment 1 to payment 12, because we're just looking for that 1 year. So 4,920.66 cents. And then we could do remaining balance minus that equity to find the new remaining balance, or you can go again and just use the balance function and say, okay, well, with all of this new stuff plugged in, I just want to know the balance 12 payments in, and we should get $215,094.28. So after 5 years, we still owe this amount, this $215,000. We have built, right, the equity basically from the 240 down to the 215. So the difference of those would be our equity. The other way to do that is to solve or sum the 3 values for equity that we got. It doesn't really matter which one you use. You can do the first way I said, that's probably a little bit easier, is just take the full loan amount and say, well, I still owe that $215,000. So how much did I really gain in equity, build in equity? $24,905.72. How much interest did we pay in total? Well, there's a couple ways to do this as well, but the easiest thing would just be to sum what you have. So to say, okay, we've got 21,996.05 from the first 3 years. 85.16 cents from the 4th year, and 86.89 from the 5th year. So if we add those up, we're going to get a total interest of $39,201.99. Again, keep in mind, you've paid way more interest than you have toward equity in those first few years. Generally, that is the case, so I can't emphasize enough. Again, make extra payments. It'll really make a difference in how much interest versus equity you end up paying and building.